In the Fuzzy Memories podcast, we celebrate the good, the rad, and the fugly of the 80s and 90s.
We're three latchkey kids who made it out alive.
And in each episode, we break down all the culture that popped, 1 year at a time.
Whether it's the birth of legends...
I'm Lyme disease free today, and I have Whitney Houston and MTV to thank. Or audacious moves.
Imagine also the poor Golden Gate Bridge. You turn 75 and people have a party on you.
Yep. I don't want that.
Or even confusing PSAs.
And the stop, drop, and roll. I mean, I assumed as an adult I would catch on fire weekly.
All the time!
We've got a take that will make you laugh.
We've also got thoughts on all sorts of random phenomena and the most unmitigated of golf.
Why sharks can't be trusted, people can't be trusted, and rivers can't be trusted. It's collusion.
It's of the highest degree.
Uh-huh.
You were counseling me to start my remarks with, first of all, bitch.
Everyone in that room would have snapped to attention.
It's going to be basically coffee lids, shark revenge, and then maybe like Matt Getz. God, we need to do something about him.
Join us every other Wednesday to celebrate the hits, the misses, and the misfits of the weirdest decades.
If I could tell my 14-year-old self from 1990 that I would be eating in a cheesecake factory in
Beverly Hills,
I'd be like, we did it. We did it, Joe.
We did it.
Listen and subscribe to Fuzzy Memories on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and your favorite podcast platform.
Hello, and welcome to Broads and Books, the podcast with one unique theme, 4 handpicked book recommendations, and 2 broads. I'm Amy.
And I'm Erin, and this is episode number 35, Sex Stuff.
Sex stuff.
Sex Stuff.
Let's just keep repeating the word sex.
S-E-X.
S-C-X. Let's talk about sex. I think that,
Now I start the sex, baby.
Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things.
Baby, let's talk about sex stuff.
Oh boy, we may have to cut that, but it was beautiful. It was beautiful while we did it.
That is the closest we've come to having to pay for something. And I want to...
Do you think Salt and Pepper's just on, off copyright at this point? Like everyone just, can sing it and do whatever?
I say let's roll the dice.
Let's do it. I think Salt and Pepper would like us.
Yes.
Yes.
And I mean, if you want me to do Shoop, I'll do that too.
I will sing Shoop to you.
Yeah.
Salt and Pepper. And by sing, I mean
Salt and
rap.
pepper. I like the way you're good at that, Salt and Pepper.
So in case you couldn't tell by our discussion and our poor singing, we are talking about sex stuff this week. I think we're talking about books that involve sex.
Yes.
We're talking about writing that's actually good with sex.
Yes.
It can go real wrong, Erin.
So wrong.
Not so wrong, it's right. Like
No, it doesn't turn.
Straight wrong.
Just straight off the off-ramp to wrong. Yeah. There's no quick U-turn back into right.
And I think sometimes there are books that are just like sex scenes with like the minimum of plot between them. Hey, that's fine. We're not really talking about that today.
No.
We're talking about, sex folded in somehow.
Yes. Maybe it's actually a central part of the plot.
Maybe it is.
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah. Just like sex is a central part of being a human being.
It is.
Yes.
I liked watching you reach for words there.
I was like, where am I going with this?
I was like, she'll land it eventually, and I'll enjoy the ride.
I wish sometimes our podcast was visual to see some of the expressions we make on our face, because they're gold. Just straight gold.
They are.
Solid gold.
Solid gold. Hits, baby. Maybe that's what we should have named our podcast. Solid gold moments.
Oh my God.
Gold nuggets.
And then I would have paid for the solid gold song.
Yeah.
And the solid gold dancers to do like a routine for us.
Wow. All right. We're throwing a lot of money at this all of a sudden.
All worth it, Erin.
I agree.
All worth it.
All worth it.
Yeah.
Okay. So to get into this, get into the mood, if you will.
Now I feel weird about this episode.
Something about the way you said that just made me real uncomfortable.
I know. I won't sing Luther Vandross then.
I was going to go Barry White, but okay. Either one.
I'll put these candles away real quick.
Oh, good.
Oh, dear. We shouldn't have recorded at night. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a really important question.
Oh, please go for it.
Would you, Amy,
Yes.
go to a nudist colony?
I think I would in one circumstance.
Okay.
So, you know how, like, you go to a gym and in the locker room, there are women that are fully clothed and there are women that are just straight up nude.
Yes, yes.
And they are confident as all hell and I'm all for it. But I myself, because there are still some clothed people, I feel uncomfortable. If I can get to the nudist colony and I am guaranteed that everyone there is naked and there is no, like, public disrobing, like I don't have to awkwardly take my clothes off in front of anyone, sure.
Okay.
Do it. Because
Okay.
then we're all there. We're all
Right.
naked. It's all fine. I think if you just remove the awkwardness
Okay.
of that initial moment, sure.
Yeah. All right.
I can see a lot going wrong with the situation, but I'm thinking in my head, yeah, that'll go fine.
That'll go fine.
Yeah.
All right.
What
all
about
right.
you?
It's a hard pass for me, and here's why.
You're not going to come with me to the nudist colony?
I mean, maybe if you were going, but here's why. It has nothing to do with the people actually being nude. I actually think that would be fine for the same reason. Like the
Everyone's
locker room
doing it.
thing, that makes
Yep.
me feel very free. Like I can get on board. My problem is that I am an avid people watcher, and I feel like that's going to be taken wrong in a nudist colony.
That's a very good point.
like my intense scrutiny is probably not okay when you're naked.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because when you're wearing clothes, somehow that's a shield against your intense
Yeah,
scrutiny.
like I'm still like, oh, whoa.
Yeah.
But I mean, I love people watching. It's one of my favorite things
me
to
too.
do. It's fascinating.
God, we're going to get kicked out because
Yeah,
of our
they're gonna be
people
like,
watching.
"You're leering." I'm like,
Yeah,
"No, I'm
no,
people
just
watching.
looking,
I'm
just
not.
looking."
It really has nothing to do with that. Your nakedness. It has to do with that weird thing you ate. That I can't believe you ate that on a
While
beach.
you were naked.
Yeah. Why are you eating ribs right now? That's what it would be. So you went nude, but you put on a rib bib. I don't get it.
Wow. Yeah, I mean that's a great point. Question for you:
Mm-hmm.
When does looking cross over into leering?
I don't know. That's why I can't go.
That's a good point.
I'm not sure I know the line. I want to say I do. But I can feel confident that in my people watching I have leered. And so,
Me too.
yeah.
But like you said, that shield of clothing has protected us.
Yeah.
It would not protect us in that situation.
and if my mouth is agape because I'm
God.
so shocked, I don't
Yes.
want you to think it's because of anything on your person.
No.
It's your actions.
And I also don't want you, gentlemen over there, me staring at you, does not take that as like I'm into you.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is me like, what the F is on your face kind of thing.
Yeah.
What is that weird mole on your belly?
Yeah. Or like, why did you decide that this was the appropriate time to put together a remote control car and
Yeah.
race it around the beach?
And why, if you have a third nipple, have you come to this nudist colony? Because you're going to get leered at.
Also, can I ask you some follow-up questions?
Tell me more about that nipple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, guy in the water with your dog in an inner tube. Did you come with anyone? That's not a come on. I'm just really wanting to know.
We're going to get in real trouble. We can't go to a nudist
No,
colony.
no,
ever.
I don't think
I can
so.
also see it turning easily into a cult. And we've already established how we feel about cults.
Oh, you're
so
right.
it could get real weird.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you could get more accidentally brainwashed when you're naked.
Yeah, you're probably
you think?
right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like they make you disrobe and then suddenly they hit you with the space god and you're like, sure, I'm naked.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
everything
in.
feels topsy-turvy
Yes.
right now. Everything that's wrong could be right. I don't know.
That said, most women's clothes are a nightmare. So
Yeah.
I am all for nudity.
Yeah.
To be more comfortable.
Agreed. Wholeheartedly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad we established that.
I like it. So, keeping that in mind, because there's a lot of things that would go into a nudist colony and like a lot of, understanding.
Sure.
Do you feel that you're equipped to teach sex ed? And if so, what would you like to cover that isn't?
I don't know if I'm equipped to teach it.
Okay.
But I'm going to go for it anyway.
Oh, good.
Because what I want to teach girls especially, like, sure, you're pulled aside and you're told about menstruation and you're told about how your body's going to change. You are not told that it's okay to like sex, that it's okay to protect yourselves. It's okay to, figure out what you like sexually. Like, sex is not this horrible thing that you're probably being taught that it is.
Yeah.
And girls, it's okay.
It is.
It's just okay to like it, to figure it out, to explore.
Yes.
Get out there and explore. Maybe not when you're 10. I haven't thought this through fully, but
No, I picture you in an older age sex ed
yeah.
class. Yeah, you don't want to be doing the nuts and bolts of it. No.
Another thing I want to tell girls, it's okay to like sex if you have a bigger body than normal. You know, you see a lot of like sex scenes with rail thin ladies up in the cinema.
Wasn't sure where up in was going, and then it landed at cinema, and I was simultaneously overjoyed and confused.
Again, one of those situations I wish we were recording this visually because your expression just...
Up in the cinema.
Up in the cinema. Anyway, the point is,
yes,
it's okay to like it no matter what body you're in,
yes,
no matter who you like doing it with.
There you go.
Go for it.
Yes.
That's my sex ed. Boom.
I like it.
Yeah.
Done. Well done.
Thank you. Let's get back to straight nudity, though.
Okay. So, Erin.
I am willing to bet you have a moment involving nudity that is either A, weird, B, strange, C, funny, D, awkward, or E, all of the above.
It is indeed all of the above.
Right,
yeah.
right.
And I actually have multiple to pick from.
Sure.
Yeah. The one I'm going to discuss today, when I was in college, I took a job as a nanny for a period of time for a professor that I had.
Sounds terrible already.
And I went and interviewed, and it was clear from their dynamic right from the beginning that he wanted children and she did not. And she was pregnant, and she was going to have to take off for a period of time from work. And she had a high level, very career focused job. She was, that she spent a lot of hours at. And she was in the interview, this was prior to them having the baby. She was very adamant that she wanted to spend the least amount of time at home. Like she needed to transition back to work as soon as possible. Okay, fine. So, interviewed, they said, great. They had the baby. They call me back. So I come back the first day that I'm going to nanny, and she's going to have me do a few other things around the house before she went back. So she wants me to come to, bond with the baby or whatever. And I come, and she's topless, which didn't totally take me by surprise. She said she was breastfeeding. Okay, fine. Like I can, I'm an adult at this point. I can get past the boobs. Like, okay, whatever. What I didn't account for was she initially met me in the kitchen, which is fine. And I'd been in the baby's, nursery. And she invited me into their bedroom because she was sitting on the bed. She's back in the hospital, whatever. So she had me come in there to get some stuff to take the baby's room. What I did not anticipate when I closed the door, shut the door to get diapers that were on the floor, was a huge painting of her nude.
Oh!
Horribly done.
Oh!
And her husband had done it.
Oh,
yeah.
God. This is like the triple whammy of terrible.
Yeah. So then I had to edit my face because she's right there.
Oh,
and
my
I'm like,
God.
that's you. You're nude. It's clearly an amateur job. What is going on? And I turn around and she tells me this whole story about how, he was this great gift and isn't he a wonderful painter? And I'm like, I don't even know what to say. Like, I don't know what to say.
I have so many follow-up questions, but mostly about like her frame of mind. Like if her husband gave her this painting, do you think she was like, this is shit, but I'm going to hang it on the wall just to prevent any future fights? Or do you think like, God, I am just so beautiful and he did this?
I know, and I know that she was like vain in the sense that I'm so beautiful, but she was a very strong personality, and I know she would have not backed down from a fight because I've heard many of their fights.
Okay.
So I don't think if she didn't like it, she wouldn't put it up. I think it was more like when I look back now, almost like there was a shock factor or something to it. Like she kind of liked the
like look how cool we are to have this.
Yes,
in our bedroom.
there was kind of that edge to it more than like a vain, oh, I'm so good looking, because it wasn't flattering. I mean,
wow, but also strange to show to you pretty much on the first day.
And also without warning. Like, if you
without
had
any
said,
warning.
I could have
Yeah.
edited my face on the way back if you had been like, hey, I want to show you this painting. I don't know how you address that, I guess. Like, hey, my husband did this painting. I want to show you. And I'd have been
Maybe
like,
you just
hell
address
no.
it by the fact that knowing you have a young woman coming into the house to work for you. Maybe just
address it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, don't let her into the bedroom. Or
Right.
take that painting down for a while.
And I'm like, man, I dealt with your boobs, but I think I have to draw the line at being like face to face with a full size crotch shot, basically.
Yeah. Wow, the painting was that big. It was like...
It was large.
Okay,
It was like
okay.
basically took up the whole wall.
Wow.
He used the whole canvas.
Do you think she sat for portraits for
I
that?
don't know.
Okay.
I didn't consider that at the time out of the sheer shock, but I've thought about this in retrospect.
I imagine.
And I have often wondered, did he work off photos? Did she sit? I don't
that
know.
part of their dynamic
Yeah,
somehow?
I don't know.
Huh.
I don't know.
Huh. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, honestly, when you started that story, I thought it was going to be like the story where you, your underwear was down and your boss caught you in the toilet.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be nudity involving you.
No.
This was a whole.
No,
this
yeah.
threw me for a loop. Mm-hmm. I like it though. I
Yeah.
like this story. Yeah.
Yeah, it was something.
Okay. Well, on that note,
Yeah.
on uncomfortableness, weirdness, let's talk about sex stuff.
Let's. Why don't you show me your painting?
I think that's when looking goes to leering. That line right there.
Oh, show me your painting.
Show me your painting.
See, this is my problem, is that I give too many points for humor. So if someone said that to me, I would think it was so hilarious. I'd be like, fine.
Yes, you're like, oh shit, this is harassment. Oh no.
What have I done? I thought you were hilarious.
Yes.
Turns out you're terrible.
I think that's a good point too. I could easily fall for that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no, that wasn't your intent at all.
Oh, no, you weren't being
Yeah,
funny?
no.
Oh.
Oops.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Well, hey, let's move into some fiction
Let's get some picks.
Talking about sex stuff. My fiction pick is called Paul Takes the Form of a Mortal Girl.
Yes.
By Andrea Lawler.
Okay.
From 2017. A small press, rescue press, based out of Iowa City.
Yes.
So it is the early 1990s in Iowa City, and Paul is 22, 23-ish. And Paul is sort of a shapeshifter. Usually Paul takes the form of a gay man, but Paul can transform into a she with female parts, and they name this version of themselves Polly. The first time they do this, they want to know what sex feels like for a girl. So whatever form they're in, Paul/Polly, they're seeking something. They're going to bars, and they're going to hookups, and they're going to parties in Iowa City, and then in Chicago, and Boys Town, and then in Michigan, and Massachusetts, San Francisco, sort of all over the place. And they're having a lot of sex all over this country. And in every sort of like combination and permutation you could think of, like every sort of, straight, queer, all sorts of sex. And some crazy kind of hot scenes along the way. I'm going to tell you that right now. And the sexcapades, they're pretty fun. And at least they are on the surface. Because what I really like about this in one way is it's sort of like fantasy fulfillment. I think a lot of us wonder, like, what is sex like for our partner? Or what is sex like if we identify as a woman, what would sex feel like for a man? Or if I identify as a woman and straight, like, what would it be like to have sex with another girl? Like, we have so many sort of questions, and this kind of addresses a lot of that. It's really, really interesting. It's also super fun. It was super fun for me to follow along in Iowa City and Chicago in the 90s. There's lots of places I recognize. It was very, very cool. I also liked that Andrea Lawler uses this sort of supernatural idea to talk about identity in a way, as well as sexual behavior. Because if our bodies can change as we want them to, then who are we really? Like, how do we identify if we can be male one moment and female the next and gay one moment, straight the next? And once we see Paul/Polly transform a few times, we see that these kind of questions haunt them as well. So they're sort of searching for who they really are in the way of a lot of young queer people, I think. And they're trying on clothes, they're trying on looks, they're trying on physical shapes to see what feels right and to see what feels real, ultimately. So I love this book. In our last episode, remember I said that I'm going to sound like an asshole, but I did a master's thesis on the book that we talked about. I'm going to do it again because I included this in my most recent MFA craft essay. Loved it. I did a book review on this. Like each time I sort of dug into it, there's so much there that's so deep and fun, and I just love it. It's funny, it's dark, it's strange, it's hot as hell. Go for it.
I can attest. It is on my list. I actually ordered it after I read your book
Did you?
review. Yeah, and I need to, because I'm addicted to books. There's books everywhere, and then I forget which one, I get distracted by a pretty other thing, and then...
Isn't that sex stuff right there?
It is.
Just getting distracted by a pretty other thing.
Yeah, and then I'm like, I need to go back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to stick to what I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sounds great. This book.
It is.
Yes. All right. Well, my fiction pick this week is called Fleischman is in Trouble by Taffy Brodesser Ackner. So this book, it's fairly new, actually, in 2019. It was shortlisted for the National Book Award among other high praises and book awards. But it's her first novel. It's this author's first novel. She's written for many magazines before. Amy mentioned actually before this episode that she wrote a really in-depth piece about Goop.
Yes. And I think I'll link to it in the show notes because it is... Like, I read it, and then I was like, I want to read whatever she does in the future, because the way she took it on is just incredible.
I need to read it now and compare, because this book was phenomenal. So we start out, with the main character, Toby, who's 41, and we find out he's in the middle of a divorce. So he married the love of his life, Rachel. He couldn't believe that she went for him. He felt like kind of the quintessential dorky guy who didn't really have a lot of long-term relationships, didn't really find himself being what women wanted. He's a doctor now, a kidney specialist. She has a very high-level career as well. They have 2 kids. And he finds himself, they're about to the point where they're going to sign papers. So they are living separately. They're trying to co-parent. And the book opens with him in this new world of dating, which is totally different than, his college years, as in there's a lot of dating apps. Social media plays a large part. So he's trying to traverse this, sometimes with the help of his interns at the hospital, trying to explain things to him. So what he finds is that because he's 41, because he has a successful career, he is a hot commodity on the dating app. So all of a sudden he's experiencing being super attractive and wanted. So he's trying to figure out how to deal with that power and that knowledge, how to traverse this new dating world. And in the same time, he's basically telling us the story of his life. It is actually told from the viewpoint of someone else. I won't tell you who in the story, but the whole story is actually told from another viewpoint. But it feels like you're watching him directly do it. So, and then you're also hearing the story of his wife, Rachel. And so for the first large part of this book, you are following just what's happening to them now, how he's trying to get through. But quickly at the beginning of the book, we find out that Rachel has disappeared. She was supposed to pick up the kids. She never shows up. Toby's been trying to get a hold of her. She said she was going to a retreat to find herself, and now he can't get a hold of her. So he's also now dealing with taking on all of the responsibility for the children, nanny, school supervision, dealing with the problems they're going through at their ages, like 11 and 9, I think. And so he's faced with a lot of problems he's never dealt with before, that he doesn't have a partner to say, how do we want to do this, or can you handle this? So he starts to come to this realization that maybe the way that he's portrayed everything or thought about everything might not be true. Because now that he's forced to take on all of these other sides of the responsibility and have a career and be successful, things are starting to look a little different to him. And right about the time that we're feeling like he might be getting there, the narrator flips and starts to tell us some of Rachel's story. And so ultimately, I won't, give away the end or anything, but it is fascinating how this goes. It's a fascinating look at sex in the digital age, in this age of dating apps and social media, and how that all plays a part. It's fascinating in terms of sex inside a marriage and a marriage in general, how that plays a part, attractiveness. Especially, it seems like in divorce, there's this kind of need to paint one or the other the problem or blame, or one wants to come out as the victim. And this story does an amazing job of dissecting it from the inside so that you can't really say one or the other is or isn't. And it's really rewarding to watch the characters learn more about each other in these situations where they thought that they knew everything there was to know, that they were at the end of their relationship, essentially. So like I said, it's funny. There's a lot of really funny moments. There's a lot of sad moments. It's overall super relatable, no matter where you are in life. If you are dating right now and on the dating apps, you're probably going to find even more humor than I did. If you're married, you're going to understand a ton of it. If you've gone through a divorce, you're going to understand a ton. If you are just in a serious relationship or had a relationship, and whatever stage you're in, you're going to get something from it. And she's, as an author, she is smart and witty and lots of great observations, and it flows. It's like a compulsive read. Like, you just tear through it.
Yeah. I like that idea too, because I imagine, from Rachel's perspective,
Toby comes out and he's, super hot 41-year-old, and she comes out and she's 41, she will not be seen as the hot commodity that maybe she was when she was younger.
Right.
So an interesting comment on aging in our dating society,
yes,
too.
Yeah, and there is some of that. And what's interesting is that there's this whole use of this sex in the digital age as kind of the backdrop to help you understand these two and understand kind of their personalities and why this is so amazing to him. And so I loved that use of sex as a tool to bring out all these other things, which is true to life, I think. So
Very much so.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why we named it Sex Stuff, because sex is so tied to so many different
stuff.
things.
Yeah. So this certainly has sex stuff in it.
Well, great.
Yes. And just like in real life, some awkward, some wonderful, some everything in between.
I kind of love, actually, when we see like awkward sex happening in a novel or in a book, because it feels so much more real.
Yeah.
In a way,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially to his character. I mean, he met his wife early on in college and they married. I mean, he's way beyond dating in the digital age or anything like that. So trying to figure this all out and trying to understand how quick and direct everything is also makes for a lot of really funny scenes.
Wow.
So,
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Because like I said, when I read that Goop article, I was like, she's funny. She can get to, the heat of the matter very, very quickly, but also just give you a hell of a ride, too.
Yeah. No, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I would
Excellent.
absolutely pick up anything else by her because it was
Sweet.
great. Yeah.
Great. Well, other genre books. I picked one, and we just discovered before this show that we both read this. And so I want to hear your take on it later as well. But the book is called 3 Women by Lisa Taddeo from actually hot off the presses earlier this month. I think it came out on my birthday, in fact, in July. Birthday gift for me.
It was.
Yeah. I actually just finished this week, and I'm still processing it. I think you said you're kind of still processing it, too.
I just
in a lot
finished
of
it
ways.
this week, too, which is weird. We did not even talk
We
that we
did
were reading
not.
the same book. How weird is that?
It's real weird. Okay.
Ride or die.
So Lisa Taddeo, she originally set out to write about desire from the male perspective. She was sort of interested in seeing like how men's desire, it sort of seems to be all consuming. She says in the introduction that like presidents forfeit glory for blowjobs and husbands will throw aside whole marriages for a little bit of strange. And so she thought that she was going to talk about that element of desire, but she found that actually the female perspectives and the female experience were much more fascinating, but also hard to understand. So she found 3 women, followed them around, lived around them for years. And we were talking about this actually took 8 years of her life, right? She got to know these 3 women very intimately. She dug extremely deep. And so this book then is about their desire. Maggie is from Fargo, and she is a teenager who confides in her favorite teacher when he suddenly starts cultivating a relationship between them. And she's a teenager consumed with Twilight novels about forbidden desire. So this sort of seems exciting and powerful to her, but also the fact that he dictates the rules, like when she can contact him, like how they can be together, that kind of stuff. She sort of feels completely at his whim. And later, after they break it off, when she gets a little older and he is named Teacher of the Year in North Dakota, she finally realizes this was really wrong and she needs to speak up. So then there's a trial, and it's probably no surprise to any of us who know how little women and girls are believed how that trial goes. Lena is from Indiana, and she's a married mom who is beyond lonely in her marriage. Like, her husband won't touch her, won't kiss her. He finds it disgusting. And she is desperate. So she hooks up with an old boyfriend and sort of turns herself inside out to experience those fleeting moments of wanting and being wanted and sort of living in that brief time that she has him. And her whole life sort of revolves around that pretty much. She will, if she gets a text from him, she will rearrange everything to be with him for just a little bit, even knowing how little he regards her. Then there's Sloan from Long Island, and she is married to and owns a restaurant with a guy who is turned on by seeing her with other men. So desire becomes extremely complicated for her, especially when she's helping him fulfill his fantasies, but yet she's sort of feeling good and bad things about the situations as well. And when her partners are married too, then things start getting even more complicated. The structure is back and forth between the 3 women. There's scenes, there's moments, there's memories, there's text exchanges, there's all sorts of stuff. I loved it because the book to me was so intense. It felt so personal. It felt so real. The way that she writes it is extraordinary. It can be real. What I got from this is it can be so hard to understand your own desires sometimes. And then to see her sort of translate how these women felt into a very tangible, very, visceral way, it just felt like, oh my God, there were so many moments I felt like of recognition. Like, yes, that's how it feels. Or yes, that's how that specific moment might feel. To me, that was a sign that this was super, super real. There was another sign, too, that she actually was talking to more women and talking to a couple families to be included. And then after a few months, they were like, even with you changing names, I don't want to be involved in this. It's too personal. It's too revealing, all that kind of stuff. One last thing. She said in an interview that after I found Lena, I knew the book was about desire. Desire is linked to sex, but it has almost nothing to do with it. They can be completely separate from each other, and they can also be completely interwoven. And sometimes sex is just sex, and when that was the case, I wasn't interested. So, yeah, I mean, I was kind of floored by it in a lot of ways. I think I am still processing it, but what did you think, Erin?
Same. I think I'm still processing on a lot of levels. I think the idea of it, I love the idea that you start from this place of it being, you're kind of talking about male desires being all-consuming, and you're kind of flipping that and talking about the female perspective of it. I think that which it's interesting because as a reader and as an avid reader and someone who frequently now talks about books, I think it's easy to want a book to do everything. Yeah. And I think that I'm even getting caught up in that. Like I wanted her to take it a little bit further, and I'm not sure now that it really needed to in that sense. I mean, it's a book about desire, and that's really what you're reading, and it's raw and it's interesting and compulsively readable. I mean, very page turning like no other. But I think it left me with a lot of questions. And I think my first reaction as a reader is to want the author to answer those. And now that I'm kind of processing, I'm wondering if that's just what her purpose was. I'm just going to bring up some questions.
But that's a great point, especially as avid readers. I think we're used to maybe novels or other stories. Kind of, there's a sense of closure, there's a sense of conclusion, and in this, there's not, because these women are still living. So they're either traumatized or somehow affected by these experiences, and they just keep living, and desire keeps changing for them. And this felt like almost a moment in time for them. You know?
And I think what was interesting for me is that with these three women, you can draw a definite line between, when she said she started out thinking she was going to write about male desire being all-consuming, you can draw a line, about female, but also about how much male desire is intertwined in female desire. Yeah. And you can get that from the stories. She doesn't necessarily pull that back anywhere. But now that I think about it, that wasn't really the way this book was set up. I mean, it's set up to tell those stories, and then you're kind of left with, okay, and I think that as a female reading it, you can probably relate to things in there and say, oh, I can recognize those feelings, which probably was the bigger purpose in my mind.
And maybe in some ways, because it's so recognizable, we kind of want to see the end, because we're like, explain it to me so I can understand myself a little bit better.
That's a good point.
And she doesn't do that. I don't know if there would have been a way to do that. But yeah, I think, like you said, compulsively readable, really fascinating. You're going to have some feelings about it, both positive and negative, probably. I also really like, too, how she kind of dissected how women can come after women, and how, like, in the situation with Maggie being the teenager, she was often called whore and slut and all these things once news got out. Once things start being rumored about Sloane, the older woman, the women's reaction is quite hard. And so I really liked how she dug into that as well. And why do we do that? Why? Because what we're taught, because of how we experience desire, it's extremely complicated.
Well, it is. And I think as women, we're always taught that everything's competition. And I mean, the whole world is set up to teach us that there's one basically accepted frame of reference for desire, right? And you mentioned it too before in what you would cover in sex ed. This kind of really attractive person is the one that's allowed to enjoy sex, to have it, to have it on their terms because they can have it with anyone, so they get to be picky. Where there's this almost kind of feeling sometimes that females, well, if you don't fit this certain stereotype, then you can have it this way, but no other way. And I think that naturally sets up a competition where people feel threatened. Because if yours is different, then that threatens mine, which feels very normal.
Yes.
So I feel like that's a very apparent in this book. And obviously, again, not the place probably to dissect that and cover it. It's a book all in a topic all of its own. But
well, and I got to thinking too, like how do we see other depictions this deep of female desire elsewhere? And I can't really think of a place. You know, we may even in some of our own personal friendships and discussions, girls, we often don't get into that kind of stuff.
No.
We're often, sort of being competitive or being what we're taught to be.
Right.
We're shaming someone else. We're,
it's too hard to be vulnerable to feel
Exactly.
like that's going to get judged or absolutely. Well, that actually pairs really well with the
excellent.
book
I
that
totally
I picked.
meant to do that.
I knew you did,
Yeah,
even though we didn't talk about it.
Even though I have no idea what you're about to pick.
Yeah.
I know it's going to fit perfectly. Yeah.
Well, my book is called Come As You Are, The Surprising New Science That Will Transform Your Sex Life by Emily Nagoski. And she actually just recently wrote a book called The Burnout Cycle that was about how to get out of the cycle of stressing yourself out or always trying to be bigger. Yeah. So I want to start with the author before I totally tell you what this book is about. Because the power of this book and the simplicity of this book really lies with her and really understanding what her background is. She has a PhD in health behavior with a doctoral concentration in human sexuality from Indiana University. She has a master's degree in counseling with an internship at the Kinsey Institute Sexual Health Clinic.
God.
She's taught both graduate and undergraduate classes in human sexuality, relationships, communication, stress management, and sex education. So I wanted to say all that first because she knows her stuff.
Yes.
She's not coming to this book as someone who's like, oh, love yourself or keep things spicy with a weird in-home sex party toy. Like, that's not what this is. Like, if you're
She's coming at
afraid,
it,
like
from
if
a
you're
very
like, oh
practical
no,
and-
I've been there, or like I tried to talk to a friend and they were like, oh, well, I just, whatever. This is not what this is. This is a very science-based approach. This is very brain science. This is anatomy, all of those things. So her own explanation of her bio is, I'm here to teach women to live with confidence and joy inside their bodies. It's a small goal in the grand scheme of things, but it's a goal that I think truly does have the power to change lives. So the book explains why and how women's sexuality works. And it's based on groundbreaking research in brain science. It's not a bunch of like weird magazine quizzes oh, do
Cosmo
you
shit.
Yeah, exactly. Or weird like anecdotes like, oh, well, my friend said this.
Yeah.
None of that is in here. She spends a huge part of the book at the beginning fully illustrating that actually every single woman has their own individual unique sexuality. So much so that even our anatomy is unique, to the point of it being so unique as in like our fingerprint. It's that unique. Yeah. That the combination of women's desire, women's sexuality, and also their anatomy, people don't understand how different those are woman to woman because of how society's mainstreamed it. Yeah. And she gives the example in her class of showing like women have even women, she said, have a certain idea of what a vagina looks like. And she was like, people don't understand how different they all look. And so she's talking a lot about just honest truth, science, facts that even as a female, I was kind of blown away. But her main point is that because this is so unique and so different, and she spends the rest of the book explaining how you can understand your own desire, how you can use that, how that is playing a part in your relationships, both whatever your sexual relationships are, your long-term relationships, friends, at work, all those things, how you view all that stuff, how that comes out. And she is doing it all with the purpose of saying there is no comparison. Like, we want this all to be reduced to one simple thing, and it just isn't.
That's
because
amazing.
each person is so different, and each person is so different in what they want and desire because of the actual way they're made up, not because they've been conditioned that way, or not because they're a weirdo or whatever. Not to say that those things can't play a part,
Of course, but
experiences and stuff, but it's This book is so informative, but it's also very readable and entertaining. She has a great writing style that she weaves in all the stuff that you want to see in a book like this, the science, the research, the studies. She backs everything up, she says, with evidence from her own work. So there's no way for you to dispute it and go, okay, well, that doesn't seem quite.
It's just some lady spouting stuff. Yeah, yeah.
But it's also entertaining, which is
amazing.
Yes, it's fantastic. It was a great read. I think no matter where you are in your journey as a female, I think this book, you should read it. Because there was stuff I didn't know. I had no idea. So
I'm sold. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And also, I kind of like the idea that we're all our own unique snowflake.
yes.
In the way that our bodies and even our vaginas are set up.
Yeah.
And our brains. Yeah. That's
exactly.
amazing.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And I made fun of like the little quizzes, in Cosmo or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
But one of the great things that she does in this book, which is why I say you probably, if you get this, you should get your own copy, because she has spots that you can jot things down or take quizzes, but her quizzes aren't like, oh, would you rather date, which boy of NSYNC are you most attracted to? Like, it's not that. It's like actual questions where you have to reflect on your own life experiences, and then she helps you translate what that means, like what's more important to you. So this is a very rudimentary example, but say maybe you're the type of person that can only experience desire or sexual energy in a courtship situation, or maybe a courtship situation actually is a turnoff for you.
Yeah.
So she kind of explains that there's so many different combinations of all these things, and once you kind of figure out how it works, it's also really helpful for couples, no matter whether straight, gay, whatever it is, that can use that information and say, okay, see, this is why this works for me and this doesn't, or this is how we could use this to help us, not just like, hey, look at, like, we should go to a hotel, that'll spice things up. Like, this is actual, it's not about spicing things up, it's about understanding it,
who
and
you
connecting
are and
deeper.
who your partner is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That also, even just that rudimentary example, I was like, that's why I hate flowers and I hate every stupid thing that is supposed to be romantic. I can't stand any of that stuff. It makes me so uncomfortable, and I never know why. So, I'm going to read about it. I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah, you'll find out that it's because you're unique, and that part of your snowflake doesn't like that.
Oh, it does not.
It doesn't. It's okay.
That's why I hate Valentine's Day. I hate everything that's supposed to, elicit some sort of reaction from you. Like, hate it all.
But I think that also might be why I had a different reaction to this book at first, to the three women, because I had this kind of going in, and then I was thinking, like, go further. Yeah, this is also different, but how, and that wasn't what that author's purpose was.
Yeah.
But because I had this background knowledge going in, I kept thinking, like, oh, I want you to push this a little more. I want you to push it a little more. So again,
that makes great sense. Yeah.
Probably not entirely a fair reading. So
you're saying we're going to read this book and we won't be able to see anything the same way again, pretty much.
Kind of, yeah.
I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want it to blow my mind. I am going to get my own copy.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's great. Whew. And I haven't read the Burnout Cycle yet, but I intend to, just because I thought her writing was amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And burnout is one of those things that I need to know more about too, because it happens so easily.
It does. Yes.
Well, pop culture wise.
Whew, yeah.
Oh, man. We have talked about a lot of sex stuff. We've got more. Got more. I am recommending a show on Netflix called Easy. It has 3 seasons. It's done now. It was 3 total seasons. About maybe 10 episodes each season of about a half hour each. Very easy to sort of, binge. Created by a guy named Joe Swanberg. And the easiest way to describe this, I think, is almost like a collection of short stories. Every episode is a different story. It tells the story of a person or a couple in Chicago. Most of them are looking at how love and happiness are playing out in their lives, how it works in their lives, how they love and be happy. And often that revolves around sex lives, too. So one couple decides to open their marriage after 20 years. One couple uses Tinder to bring a third person into their bed. 2 couples go into business together. There's one that it's called Vegan Cinderella, Erin.
Oh.
And it's one girl falls for another girl who's vegan and tries to be vegan herself, and hilarity ensues.
Oh.
Yeah.
It
I thought it was very funny.
Yeah.
So it's all over the place. We've got straight couples, we've got gay couples, we've got biracial couples, we've got white couples. I really love how sex and desire is depicted in this show. It's very frank, it's very realistic, it's very open, and there's some great sex scenes happening, but it really serves a story, and you understand from that person's experience what this is meaning to them and how this is either helping their situation or harming it or whatever. No judgment, just experience. And the characters themselves are very complex, very real, and sometimes over the 3 seasons, you revisit them. So there were a few couples, like that one that opened their marriage after 20 years, you actually see them in like 3 or 4 more episodes, and you kind of see how it's working out over their lives, which is very interesting. What I found out doing some research this week is that most of the show is improvised. So Joe Swanberg, the creator, apparently for every episode, he writes like a 3 to 4 page outline, gives it to his actors and says, all right, go for it. Like, riff on this. And to me, after I learned that, I realized like, that's maybe why some of this feels so real. The conversations are they just feel like people actually having conversations and just kind of seeing where things go. They're not, scripted. You know what I mean?
Right.
And even the situations themselves, the way they get into them, it just felt so real. And I think it's because of that improvisational way that he's doing it, which is really cool.
Interesting.
And the cast itself is incredible. There are tons of character actors you've seen all over the place. There's Mark Maron, Dave Franco, Aubrey Plaza, Malin Ackerman, Orlando Bloom, Sophia Bush, Zazie Beetz, Gugu Mbatha-Raw, and Jake Johnson, our new girl, Fave. Oh. And he's looking good, Erin.
Is he?
Yeah, he's looking real good.
Oh, man. I'm going to have to check this out. I'd never heard of it.
It's I think it kind of flew under the radar a little bit. And maybe because it's not, a typical following the same people across. It is an anthology series.
Yeah.
And I really like it.
Okay.
Because of that.
I'm going to check that out. Sounds
and
awesome.
Jake Johnson.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You had me at Jake Johnson.
Yep.
Yeah. Even though that was at the end. You had me at Jake.
Yeah. By the way, he's in a new show right now called Stumptown.
Yeah.
With Kobe Smulders. I'm hooked.
Oh, you like it?
Yeah,
okay, I haven't checked it out at all.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
She's a PI. She's real badass.
Yeah.
Jake Johnson's her best friend.
Oh, well.
And there's some history between them.
Oh.
And he's looking good, Erin. He's looking real good.
Oh, all right. I might check it out. I've seen commercials, but I haven't.
No, it's great. I enjoy it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Well, my pop culture pick is a movie actually that Amy and I saw together called Hustlers.
I almost picked this.
I thought you might. I almost thought you might. So this is also a pretty new release.
Yes.
If you haven't heard anything about it, it's a 2019 American crime drama film that is based on the New York Magazine's 2015 article by Jessica Presser called "The Hustlers at Scores," and so it has J-Lo in it. If you didn't know, and they essentially are following the storyline of these 3 strippers at Hustlers that started kind of their own hustle. They had a scam, and they were not sugarcoat it. They were drugging some people then stealing their money.
Yep.
So that is the simplistic version of this whole story.
Oh my God.
It's amazing.
It is incredible. Yeah.
It is fun to watch. It'll leave you with questions.
Yes.
You'll have thoughts about things. You'll love the characters. It's funny, but it's poignant. It's sad. It says a lot about different aspects of society. It says a lot about things that are valued in females. I loved it from beginning to end.
I love too that it is based on this real story, but it's also like very there's that speech J-Lo gives about all of these Wall Street guys, like they took all of our money. Why can't we just take their money back? And also, you may leave wanting to start a life of crime, because I left and I was like, Erin, we're doing this, just so you know.
Yeah.
She's like, okay, that sounds good.
I see no barriers.
No barriers.
Other than I have no coordination.
Yeah, the whole pole thing.
Yeah.
We may have to not do that part.
Yeah.
'cause-
Which might be a tip off that we're not actually strippers, but we'll work around it somehow.
We'll work around it
yeah,
somehow.
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to go just for the amazement of
Oh my God.
J-Lo.
She's freaking 50, and she is she's doing well.
Yeah, she's doing well. That's a good way to put it. She's doing
But there's
well.
also a lot of incredible people in this movie.
Yeah.
There's Constance Wu. There's Lizzo.
Lizzo.
There's Cardi B.
Yep.
All sorts of wonderful people.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's a great cast. It's a great movie. And I watched a 2020 about it. I haven't read the article yet, but there was a lot of interesting stuff that they drew from that. I think one of my favorite lines in the movie is that the whole world's a strip club. Some people are given the dollar bills and some people are taking them.
Incredible.
And I don't know if that could be more true.
I think that is the height of truth.
Right?
That line right there.
Yeah.
I really love too how, it is a funny movie. It is, but it's also very, like you said, poignant. And very pointed, too. Like, there's a lot being pointed at our current system about the economic sort of meltdown in 2008. There's a lot going on here. And these women are just living the best way they can figure out how. And also maybe take it a little too far. But,
I think that's fair. But, what's interesting about this movie, too, if you have any reservations or one, for being a movie about strippers and about that situation, pretty minimum nudity, really.
Yeah, and I don't think there's actually any sex.
No, there isn't, which is funny. I thought about that after I picked this for sex
But these
stuff,
are technically sex workers, and so, it really kind of points... I mean, there's a lot of trying to coerce sex. A lot of these men are trying to get these women to do what they want them to do, which is one more reason why the women are like, listen, we're going to screw these guys.
Yeah.
Not in the physical sense.
Right.
In the economic sense.
Right, correct.
In the mental sense.
In the mental sense, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So...
Hell of a pick.
It was delightful.
Yeah. And we went to this movie again together.
Yeah.
And there were many times I looked over and you were watching for my reaction.
I don't know why I do that, but I do. It is the thing. Yeah.
We also saw this with our friend Heath. And at one point he leaned to me and when J-Lo's doing her sort of entry dance, he just goes, she's 50.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, she is.
It was also the reason I made you sit in between us because if you don't know me well enough yet, I don't want to weird you out by leering at you. I think that's a good use of the word leering while you're watching a movie.
But I asked you about this, and why do you do this again?
Because I love it so much, and then I'm waiting to see if you love it as much. It's a need for you to enjoy it with me. Yeah. And I asked Mike about this after we talked about it last time, and he's like, you do it with everything. He's like, we watch TV, you do it. If you hear something funny on the radio, you look at me. Like
you just want to share the joy.
Yes.
You want to make sure everyone's having a good time.
Yeah.
Which we are.
Yeah. But I will, if you go to a movie with me, I will frequently grab you, and not in a weird way, just your arm. Just
not
your
the
arm.
leering kind
not
of
the
way.
leering way.
No,
and then I will also just want to ensure that you're having a great time.
Which is a great, person to go to a movie with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I am just chowing down on my big-ass popcorn for dinner.
Yeah. That's what I'm
During
doing, too.
all
But
the
I'm
pole
looking
dancing.
at you. Why popcorn's flying out of my
During
mouth?
all the pole dancing scene, just pushing that popcorn into my mouth.
We were getting it. That's what happened there. Loved it.
Oof. We talked about a lot of sex stuff.
We did.
Yeah. I think it's time. To say goodbye.
It is.
Yeah. But we're going to be back next Wednesday. In the meantime, you can head to our website, broadsandbooks.com. Check out all the recommendations we made in this episode.
Also, some fantastic bonus material. And if there's something there that you feels like missing, because we talked a lot in this episode about fulfilling desire.
We sure did.
If there is something there you need to see,
we want to fulfill your desires.
We will. It won't be sexual. Don't try that.
No.
Don't
not,
try it.
Not in a creepy.
Don't do that.
No.
We haven't had to block anyone, but we will. We will.
You trying to get us to fulfill your sexual desires will get you blocked.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
No.
But if there's like a story you want to know.
Sure.
Yeah. You want to know more about how we go to movies together?
Listen, we're not going to tell you all about our sex lives, but
within
don't
try that.
Yeah.
I'll be upfront with you. It's going to be boring. Go to the internet. That's worth a Google. You'll find way better stuff. Okay.
Go to the Google.
Go to the Google.
Go to the Google and find some sex
Google.
stuff there. It's easy to find.
So easy.
And man, after you've listened to us talk about sex stuff, and even if we're not going to, fulfill your sexual desires, we still want to hear from you as far as review. Tell us how you like our show. We want to hear about it.
Please tell us.
Yeah.
And so you have bonus. You could tell us about bonus things you want. You can tell us about how great we are. And you could give us a theme idea.
Oof.
If you're like, wow, that sex episode is great, but what if you did one about this?
I thought you were going to come up with an example. I'm like,
Nope.
I can't wait to hear this.
Nope. No example. You fill in the blank.
Up the sex stuff
No,
theme?
you fill in the blank.
Okay.
We
great.
will rise to the challenge.
You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our website, broadsandbooks.com.
In the meantime, happy reading.
I'm up again. Same night, another dream. Before trying this recording thing, I didn't remember much of anything of these dreams. I didn't remember much from any of the women. And one night of doing this, and it's broken things open. The dreams they're in me, and they're coming out of me, and
Talk to me. I am not broken. I am the most whole, most real.
cause their despair. I wait for the word. Witch.
Look at the mad woman in her cage. She was a woman with holes inside her. That was the heaviest factor, the final evidence, the heart of the issue.
Somehow, you understand this. You hear me. Wherever you are, whatever this is, you... This isn't a dream journal anymore. It's not. It's just fact. Because now this is some sort of record. What are these dreams? Maybe there's a better question. Who are these women? Weird Woman is a Broads and Books production. All 9 episodes are available January 10th. Listen and subscribe to Weird Woman on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and your favorite podcast platform. That's WYRD Woman, wherever you listen to podcasts.